Fake HOA said backyard was illegal. Judge declared it historic property. Part 1. It started with a knock. 3 sharp raps on the screen door of Lila Thompson's modest, sun-drenched cottage on Sycamore Lane, one of those streets where hydrangeas bloomed without asking and where gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi. Lila was pruning her tomatoes when she heard it. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door. There she stood, Karen Whitmore, immaculate as always in a pale pink blouse tucked into crisp white jeans, clutching a clipboard like it was a badge of authority. Her icy blue eyes flickered over Lila's work boots with a smirk that didn't quite reach her lips. "Good morning," Karen said, as if she were announcing a verdict. "I'm here on behalf of the Sycamore Community Standards Association." Lila blinked. "The what now?" Karen sighed. "We're the Homeowners Oversight Alliance. HOA for short." "That's funny," Lila said slowly, "because when I moved in last spring, they told me Sycamore Lane wasn't under an HOA. Karen's smile tightened. "Well, technically, it isn't. But we're a community-led initiative to preserve the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood. I'm the acting president." Of course she was. Lila had heard the stories. Karen once called the city because someone's holiday lights were up past January. She'd measured a neighbor's grass with a ruler. And last month she tried to report a hummingbird feeder for attracting pests. Now it was Lila's turn. Karen pointed toward the backyard. "I'm afraid you're in violation." "Of what?" Karen flipped a page on her clipboard. "Non-permitted structures, overgrown heritage trees, and," she paused dramatically, "unauthorized fencing." Lila looked back at her backyard. Wild, yes, but also beautiful. A handmade wooden pergola wrapped in blooming wisteria. Stone steps leading to a koi pond built by her late grandfather. Wind chimes from Vietnam. Her hammock between 2 old magnolias. Karen narrowed her eyes. "Frankly, it looks unregulated." Lila's chest tightened. "My grandfather built this yard with his bare hands. He came here in 1952. That koi pond is older than most houses on this block." Karen didn't flinch. "That's not the issue. It doesn't conform to current guidelines. And if you don't remove it, we'll be forced to escalate." Lila crossed her arms. "Who's we?" Karen lifted her chin. "The Alliance, and we've already sent notice to code enforcement." Lila felt her stomach drop. "You what?" Karen gave a rehearsed smile. "Have a blessed day." She turned and walked off, her heels tapping like a countdown to war. Lila didn't sleep that night. She sat in her grandfather's rocking chair, staring at the photo of him taken in 1963, standing exactly where the koi pond now shimmered. He'd escaped war, worked 3 jobs, and built this sanctuary with love and calloused hands. And now someone wanted to tear it down because it didn't match the aesthetic? She opened the file cabinet and pulled out a manila envelope labeled "Property Deeds and Family History." Inside were black and white photos, handwritten receipts, a permit from 1971 for the stonework, signed by a now-defunct zoning commissioner, and a letter from the town's historical society dated 1990. It read, "The property at 415 Sycamore Lane contains culturally significant elements of post-immigrant landscape design, blending Eastern influences with American homesteading aesthetics. It is a rare surviving example of multi-generational craftsmanship." Lila's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just her garden, it was a legacy. Within a week, Karen's Alliance sent a second notice. This one threatened daily fines for non-compliance. Then came a bright yellow sticker from the city's code enforcement slapped onto her mailbox. "Investigation pending." The neighbors began whispering. Some were sympathetic. Most were afraid. "She's not doing anything wrong," said Mr. Patel next door. "But you know how Karen is," muttered a woman at the mailbox. "She makes trouble for anyone who doesn't fall in line." Lila stood her ground. She refused to tear anything down. And that's when the anonymous complaints started showing up online. Photos of her backyard posted on the local Neighborhood Watch Facebook page with captions like, "Is this even safe? Who let her build a pond? Looks like someone's hiding something." Then came the most chilling post. "Illegal backyard may be a zoning hazard. If she won't follow the rules, maybe she doesn't belong here." On a rainy Thursday afternoon, it all exploded. Lila came home from the market to find 3 uniformed city workers in a tow truck parked in front of her house. "Ma'am," one said, We've been authorized to begin removal of non-permitted structures. Lila's voice broke. You can't do that. This isn't even an official HOA. The man shrugged. They had a complaint, said it was a safety risk. We're just following orders. But then, as the workers moved toward the koi pond, an elderly woman shouted from across the street, "Stop!" It was Mrs. Rosen, 87, a retired librarian who'd lived on the block since 1956. She marched out with a walker in the rain, waving a yellowed folder. "This backyard is part of our history," she cried. "You can't erase it because one woman thinks wisteria is a weed." The workers paused. Neighbors came out with umbrellas. Then a man stepped forward. He was in a suit holding a leather portfolio. "I'm Judge Alan Frost," he said, "and I'm here on behalf of the State Historical Registry." Everyone went silent. "I received a letter from Ms. Thompson last week with documents showing this backyard predates current zoning laws and qualifies for historic preservation." He turned to the city workers. "If you touch a single rock, you'll be violating state protection statutes." The crew backed off. Karen, who had been watching from her porch, went pale. Part 2. The video went viral before Lila even made it back inside. It was a grainy cell phone clip posted by a teenager down the street. It showed the city crew stepping into her backyard, Mrs. Rosen crying out, and Judge Frost announcing his title and state authority. One moment it was a quiet neighborhood standoff. The next it was trending on Nextdoor, Reddit, and local news under the tag, Shakudiyur, Backyard Justice. By morning, every news outlet in the county had the same headline. Fake HOA tries to bulldoze historic garden, judge steps in. Karen's face, caught mid-sneer in several of the videos, was now plastered across the internet. In one clip, she could be heard muttering, "That pond is an eyesore. People like her don't know what real landscaping is." And that was the moment it all turned. Within hours, angry comments flooded social media. "People like who, Karen? This backyard is stunning. And what kind of monster hates koi fish?" Respect to Mrs. Rosen for putting Karen in her place at 87 years old. Then came the journalists. By Friday, a Channel 9 news truck parked on the corner of Sycamore Lane. Lila refused to give interviews, but Judge Frost did. "She has every legal and moral right to protect her family's legacy," he told the reporter. "This isn't just landscaping. It's a living memorial." Then came the exposés. A local blogger dug into the so-called Sycamore Community Standards Association and discovered it was never officially registered. It was just a group of 6 neighbors, all handpicked by Karen, who'd started holding meetings in her living room and writing up their own rules. More damningly, emails were leaked from the group's Gmail account. One email, written by Karen, read, "If we let people start making their homes look like jungles or third-world shrines, soon our property values will plummet." The internet lost its collective mind. Hit or cancel Karen began trending. On Monday, Karen showed up to the neighborhood watch meeting like nothing had happened. She wore a navy blazer and pearls and brought lemon bars she didn't bake. Only 2 people showed up. The rest had either resigned from her alliance or flat out ignored her texts. A day later, her employer, an upscale interior design firm, issued a statement. "We do not condone discriminatory behavior by our staff. Ms. Karen Whitmore has been placed on immediate leave pending internal review." Then came the university. Lila's niece Amara was a graduate student in architectural history. She had emailed the state registry with photos, blueprints, and documentation of the backyard's cultural significance. The registry responded swiftly. "We have officially designated 415 Sycamore Lane as a protected cultural heritage property." They even posted it on their social media with a photo of Lila's koi pond captioned, "A sacred legacy, preserved." Beauty doesn't need permission to exist. Karen's home, by contrast, sat quiet and still. Someone had taped a note to her door. "The neighborhood has spoken. You don't represent us." Something remarkable happened next. Neighbors began showing up at Lila's house, not to pry, but to help. Mr. Patel brought over fresh naan and tomato chutney. A young artist painted a mural of Lila's backyard on the old power box at the corner. Children came by to feed the koi and ask about the wind chimes. And one Saturday morning, 3 local veterans showed up with gardening tools and said, "We're here to fix whatever that mess tried to ruin." Lila cried for the first time in weeks, Not from grief, but gratitude. She wrote a handwritten thank you and taped it to her gate. To everyone who stood up when it mattered. Thank you. This garden isn't just mine anymore. It's ours. But Karen wasn't finished. Not yet. 1 week later, she filed a lawsuit in county court claiming defamation, harassment, and emotional distress due to public ridicule. The judge assigned Alan Frost. He recused himself with a single sentence. Justice must be impartial, even to those who sow discord. The new judge dismissed the case within 15 minutes. Your client created a fraudulent association, harassed a property owner, and attempted to destroy state-recognized historic grounds, he said to Karen's lawyer. Frankly, I'm considering sanctioning you for wasting the court's time. Karen left through the back exit. A reporter caught her near the courthouse parking lot and asked if she had anything to say. Karen looked into the camera, her voice low. I just wanted order, neatness, control. I didn't mean to. It got out of hand. She wasn't smiling anymore. A week after the lawsuit collapsed, Lila received a letter in the mail. The return address was from the Department of Cultural Affairs. She opened it, puzzled. Inside was a faded black and white photo of two men building a stone pond. One of them was her grandfather. The other was Karen's grandfather. Attached was a short note. These records were recently uncovered in a restoration archive. Turns out your grandfathers worked side by side after the war on landscaping projects for refugee families, including Sycamore Lane. They were partners. They built that koi pond. Together. Lila dropped the letter. The weight of the truth hit her like thunder. She stared out at the pond, her eyes filling. All this time, their families were linked, not in opposition, but in origin. Part 3. For days after receiving the letter, Lila couldn't stop staring at the photograph. Two men, one with sun-darkened skin and a handkerchief tied around his neck, the other tall with rolled sleeves and suspenders, both leaning over the half-built koi pond. Her grandfather and Karen's, partners, brothers in sweat and stone and soil. She felt everything at once, shock, sadness, wonder, and something unexpected. Forgiveness. After her court defeat, Karen vanished from public view. She stopped attending the book club. Her weekly lawn inspections ceased. Even her once thriving Instagram account, A Curated Karen, went silent. Rumors swirled. She's moving, someone whispered. She got fired from her job, said another. She's hiding because she's ashamed. But no one had seen her. Until one Tuesday afternoon, Lila heard the soft knock again. Not sharp and commanding this time. Gentle, almost apologetic. Lila opened the door to find Karen standing there, alone, clutching a letter-sized envelope. She looked nothing like the image the internet had made famous. Gone were the pearls and stiff collar. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her eyes were tired and her voice was a whisper. I found this in my father's attic, after all the news came out. I thought you should have it. She held out the envelope. Inside was a worn blueprint, neatly labeled in handwriting. Sycamore Pond Garden, designed by Charles Whitmore and Huy Van Lee. Lila pressed a hand to her mouth. Karen didn't step inside. She didn't ask for forgiveness. But she looked up, and in that look was something raw and real. I didn't know, Karen said. I only saw weeds, clutter, things out of place. But now, she swallowed hard. I realize I've been so afraid of losing control that I forgot what it means to belong to something real. Lila said nothing at first. Then softly, he used to say beauty doesn't bloom in straight lines. It grows wild, like people. Karen's lips trembled. I've done a lot of damage, she said. To you, to this neighborhood, to myself. She took a breath. I'm sorry. Weeks passed. Autumn turned to early winter. And on the first Sunday of December, the community gathered in Lila's backyard. It wasn't a protest or a ceremony. It was a remembrance. Neighbors brought flowers. Kids brought handmade cards. Local artists painted ceramic koi to float on the pond. A cellist played beneath the wisteria. And at the edge of the garden, Lila placed a small bronze plaque in the soil. It read, in honor of Charles Whitmore and Huy Van Lee, who built more than a pond, they built a legacy. Karen stood near the back. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. And when Lila caught her eye and nodded, just once, Karen's shoulders dropped, as if a weight she had carried for years had finally slipped away. Spring arrived like a promise. The garden, once threatened with destruction, now glowed with new life. The koi were thriving. Bees returned. The magnolias bloomed early, and something else bloomed too. Curiosity. A local high school teacher reached out, asking if her students could visit the garden for a class project on immigrant heritage. A city planner asked if the space could be a model for future urban preservation. And then came the call. The Smithsonian wanted to document the backyard for a traveling exhibit on immigrant-built landscapes. Lila sat in stunned silence. My grandfather? In the Smithsonian? Yes, said the curator. This garden tells a story America needs right now. A story of survival, collaboration, and legacy. Karen didn't leave Sycamore Lane. She stayed. Quietly, she withdrew from her alliance, which soon dissolved. She took a job at a local bookstore, and every weekend she walked past Lila's gate, sometimes with a flower, sometimes with bread, but always with respect. One Saturday she stopped and asked, "Would it be all right if I volunteered during the school tours?" Lila looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. "Sure," she said, "but only if you don't try to rearrange the stones." Karen laughed. "No promises." In the spring of the following year, a group of children knelt beside the koi pond, sketching water lilies. Lila stood under the pergola, answering questions about her grandfather's story. And beside her, Karen stood with a notebook, helping a girl spell the word legacy. The wind rustled the chimes. Magnolia petals drifted onto the water. The garden had not just survived, it had healed. The message, what began as a false accusation, became a mirror. What was nearly destroyed became protected, and what seemed like an enemy became a neighbor. The truth? Sometimes we build walls out of fear, but sometimes, if we're lucky, we inherit something stronger. A pond, a garden, a second chance. The end.